Complaint handling in Cyprus and elsewhere in the European Union received something of a shot in the arm in the last few years with the development of a series of directives and subordinate legislation coming out of Brussels, which lay down certain rules on how to handle complaints. For example, if we share our screen, you'll see the MiFID org regulation, Article 26, and it's quite detailed rules we have here for complaint handling. However, it's not just MiFID org that we're looking at. It's not just the MiFID world of complaint handling, because the Cyprus Central Bank, like many others in Europe, have announced that it proposes to apply to all complaints the rules of the ESMA EBA guidelines. And I say the word rules slightly carelessly because they're supposed to be only guidelines, but they're modeled on Article 26 of the MiFID org regulation, but they apply to bank deposits and mortgages and insurance. Now, on top of this, there is also a law on the ombudsman in Cyprus, as there is similar provision in other countries throughout the European Union. The law on the ombudsman describes the powers of this body and the way it works, and acts as a glue, if you like, to hold the complaint handling process together. Complaint handling is interesting and fun. That may not sound quite right, but there are lots of tasks involved in a course on this subject. To give you an example, the first task, of course, is devising a proper complaints procedure. Everyone has to have one. That's a requirement of just about every rule book on the subject that's ever existed. Then we need to know how to identify a complaint. What is a complaint? Can it be made orally? Yes, is the short answer. Could it be made by someone on behalf of the customer? Probably. What do we do, though, if we're trying to receive complaints and comply with our client confidentiality obligations when we take a call from someone who isn't the customer? Are there complainants who don't have to be customers? Yeah, there are. On top of that, we then have to look at how you acknowledge complaints. CySEC in Cyprus has a peculiar procedure for doing that, which involves getting and giving out a CySEC number for every case. Then the rule books are pretty silent or meaningless on how to conduct an investigation. Well, come along to the workshops that I do for EIMF, where we discuss just that. How do you go about investigating things? The ESMA EBA guidelines provide quite a lot of insight into how to write a final response letter, which, by the way, in Cyprus doesn't have to be in writing, but does in many other countries. But what it doesn't cover is the standards that firms need to apply when they're deciding whether to uphold complaints and what, if any, compensation to pay. This is an area that is due for development in the next few years. And finally, if you don't learn from your complaints, you're never going to get any better. There is a fairly scanty rule in the ESMA EBA guidelines and in Article 26 about learning from your mistakes and learning from complaints, but it's not going to be good enough just to say that's what we're going to try and do. You need to be a good deal more systematic about the task if you're to gain any real benefit from receiving complaints. Finally, well, I'm a real-life complaint handler. If you haven't met me before, my name's Adam Samuel. I used to work many years ago in the Insurance Ombudsman Bureau in London, and it's one of its successors, the Personal Investment Authority Ombudsman, where I was the second ombudsman. One of the more interesting challenges we all face is handling people who are angry, upset, and disoriented. They could be described as impossible complainants. I prefer to call them perfect complainants because they require the full range of our skills of listening, understanding, of not being prejudiced against people who can't comply with the ordinary forms of behavior. Equally, one other topic I like to deal with when asked about it is how to stop people from suing you. You can't actually stop people from suing people, but you can limit the damage and you can reduce the numbers of people that go to court against you by careful use of the ESMA EBA guidelines as adopted in Cyprus and other countries, and the ombudsman scheme that sits behind it. So I look forward to seeing you on our next courses on complaint handling. I've been doing them for EIMF for about 2 or 3 years now. I'd much rather be doing them in person, but I think at the moment we're planning to do mainly remote courses. See you there. Bye-bye.